your brain on yoghurt. Do you eat yoghurt because you like it and think it does you good? You may need to think again. Although I'm talking about yoghurt here, it also applies to other foods too, as you'll see when I explain the results of some research. I want to share with you some research from scientists at the Max Planck Institute for Metabolism Research in Cologne, Germany, and scientists from Yale University in the USA. There is a link to the published research paper in the video description so you can read more about it. This research is particularly interesting because they looked at participants' preferences and also did MRI scans at the beginning and end of the study to see what was happening in the brain. All the participants followed their normal diet for 8 weeks. In addition, they ate a small yoghurt twice a day. The researchers gave 26 volunteers a small yoghurt that was high in fat and high in sugar. The other 23 participants received yogurts that contained the same number of calories but were low in fat and low in sugar. Both groups experienced a slight weight gain over the 8 weeks. You'd expect that because they'd increased their calorie consumption. But that is not the interesting thing about this study. The researchers took blood samples at the beginning and end of the 8 weeks to check on things like hormone changes. Again, there was very little difference between the two groups. The researchers wanted to see if taste perception changed during the 8 weeks. They got participants to rate puddings with varying fat concentrations and apple juice with varying levels of sweetness. Participants rated them for fattiness, creaminess, oiliness and sweetness. This was done at the start of the experiment and 8 weeks later at the end. There was very little difference between the two groups. Nor was there any difference between the beginning of the experiment and the end of the experiment. This is beginning to sound rather boring, but wait. So far, so very mildly interesting. But they also rated them according to how much they wanted and liked them. The researchers found that the participants who had eaten the high-fat, high-sugar yogurts liked the low-fat foods much less at the end of the study than they had at the beginning. There wasn't the same change for sugary foods. Now we're getting to the more interesting part of the study. The researchers used an MRI scan to look at what was going on in the participants' brains. The volunteers' brain activity was measured before and after the 8 weeks. They found that those participants who had eaten the high-fat and high-sugar yogurts had an increased activity in some brain regions when presented with a high-fat, high-sugar milkshake. The milkshake activated the motivation and reward system of the brain more than it would have done without the 8 weeks of high-fat sugar yogurts. The higher level of activation also continued while they drank the milkshake. The group who had the low-fat, low-sugar yogurts didn't have this change in their brains. The researchers concluded that even a short intervention like this shifted the participants' preference to wanting more high-fat foods. Their brains had unconsciously learnt to prefer high-fat snacks. This is not just about yoghurt. You may only eat low-fat and low-sugar ones. The implications are much, much broader. This research explains that unhealthy food stimulates your desire for more unhealthy food. This may explain why some people find it hard to move to a healthier diet. If you're one of these people, it may be that you need to think about what's going on as akin to an addiction. It's the same area of the brain that are being overstimulated. You can recognise this and give up and just eat unhealthy foods with all its dangers for your long-term health. I can't help it, I'm addicted. Or you could recognise that it's going to be difficult initially, just as it would be if you were giving up smoking. But bit by bit, it will get easier if you stick to healthy food. You may find it better to cut out all high-fat, high-sugar food, just like you'd give up all cigarettes if you were giving up smoking. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment and share. And of course, please subscribe so you won't miss future videos.